How's it going, my peeps? It is now time for the Raw results / highlights and review video. I'll go over the results, some of the highlights in my opinion, and give you guys my thoughts on the overall show. So it kicks off kind of like last week with the drum roll. Maddox comes out, and right then and there he announces that there's going to be a contract signing, and it's right now. John Cena comes out, Bryan comes out. During the contract signing, John Cena is putting over Bryan, saying how he deserves it. He's the best competitor right now, and it's not all about size and power. But, Maddox, on the other hand, he doesn't really think that Bryan deserves it. Anyways, they end up signing the contract, and Maddox announces that, he wants to see Bryan prove himself tonight, so he's going to put him in a bunch of matches for tonight. Anyways, after the contract signing, first match was Del Rio versus Sheamus. In a non-title match, they showed Sheamus' bruise on his leg, which throughout the whole match, Del Rio kept kicking that and working that on that leg. And in the end, that leg kind of cost Sheamus the matchup. He was going for the Celtic Cross, but he couldn't. He fell on his leg, and that's when Del Rio rolled him up by hooking the bad leg, the boozed up leg, and got the victory. It was a pretty good match, too. Following that, Renee Young was backstage interviewing Booker T and Teddy Long, asking them what they feel about, Vicky Guerrero being new SmackDown general manager, and how, Booker T felt that, he was a GM, and then he came back, and, Vicky was an announced GM. Booker talks about how it was shocking, it was a surprise, and then Teddy Long is like, what about me? I took your spot for 3 months, you left me hanging for 3 months. And, then Vicky gets announced the general manager, this and that. And then he says, he was doing Booker T's job for 3 months while Booker T was he says something along the lines that Booker T was chilling at home. But Booker says, come on, you know that I had surgery on my tricep. Teddy says, all I know is I was left hanging for 3 months. And Vicky even kicked him out, threw him out of the arena by security. Booker T says if he keeps this up, he's going to throw him out of this building. And that's when Teddy Long says, see, you're all about aggression, physical aggression, and then he leaves. Christian then came out for a matchup against Titus O'Neil, the primetime players. Darren Young, of course, at ringside, and he did interfere in the matchup by punching Christian while he was on the outside. You had also Titus O'Neil lifting Christian up in a power slam position, or Oklahoma slam position, and that was on the outside. He lifted him up on his shoulder and climbed up the steel steps with Christian still on his shoulder and threw him back in the ring. In the end, though, Christian ends up hitting the kill switch for the victory. After that match, they had Josh Matthews interview Ryback, and Josh Matthews was, they show the replay of SmackDown where Ryback attacked Chris Jericho after his matchup with Curtis Axel. Josh Matthews says, after seeing that footage and, some of your past actions, it seems like you like intimidating people. And Ryback says he does, and that in the jungle, the weak, the strong and, the bigger people feed on the smaller people and the weak people. And he says, people like Josh Matthews, average people, and he hates average people. And pretty much, he intimidates Josh Matthews throughout the interview, and in the end, Josh Matthews leaves. Mark Henry then comes out to address the attack by the Shield. Talks about how he's proud to be born and raised in Texas, and how he's proud of the effort he put in that championship matchup against John Cena. But then he says what he's not proud of is the attack from the Shield last week, and that he doesn't just take a beating like that without giving one out. So he calls out the Shield. Shield comes out, surround the ring, attack Mark Henry. Mark Henry's trying to fight back as best he can. And the Usos music hits, they come out, and they help Mark Henry take care of the Shield. Roman Reigns ends up being the only one in the ring, so Mark Henry charges him with a splash in the corner, and then Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins pull Roman Reigns outside the ring. Following that, you have Bryan backstage warming up for his matches tonight, and John Cena comes up to him, and he says it seemed like Maddox tonight it seemed like he was nervous announcing those decisions that, you were going to be facing multiple opponents, so maybe he's not the one making his decisions. And then he's pretty much, Bryan tells him it's okay, and, like Maddox says, it's an opportunity for him to prove himself, and he doesn't want John Cena to interfere or come out at ringside for his matches, because then all of those compliments that John Cena gave him tonight, they mean nothing, because it's like John Cena, doesn't believe in him or whatever if he does that. So that was it for the segment. Following that, they had Dolph Ziggler versus Darren Young. Darren Young did not have Titus O'Neil at ringside. Towards the end of the match, you had Darren Young get Dolph Ziggler up in an electric chair position and then hitting an electric chair facebuster, going for the cover, and Dolph kicked out. And then Darren Young started taunting Dolph, and because of that, it allowed Dolph to kind of recover. He slipped behind Darren Young, hit the zigzag quick, went for the cover, won the matchup. After the match, Big E Langston runs into the ring, tries to attack Dolph, but Dolph sees it coming, so he attacks Big E Langston. But Big E ends up getting up, tries, I think, to clothesline Dolph. Dolph dodges. He tries to clothesline Dolph once again, but Dolph gets out of the way, throws Big E Langston out of the ring. Big E goes back in the ring, and Dolph goes out. So, Dolph dodges or escapes Big E Langston, and that was it. Afterwards, they had a Miz TV segment with all the divas that are in the Total Divas show, which is supposed to start this Sunday. You have the Bell Twins, the Funkadactyls, Natalya, and the two new divas. They show a preview of the show on the Titantron, and then for some reason, The Miz brings out Jerry the King Lawler, tells him to get in the ring. So Jerry the King Lawler gets in the ring. He says, well, Miz tells him, all these ladies. He says, well, I know, the Bell Twins, I know the Funkadactyls, I know Natalya, but, I don't know these two new divas, and he introduces himself to them. And, one of them shakes his hand, but the other one, who's sporting red hair, she tells Jerry the King Lawler she doesn't like how he's looking at her, and she slaps him, and she then gets on a microphone and says she's here to make an impact, and sits back down, and that was pretty much it for the segment. I mean, they didn't say anything really apart from that. I feel they could have just showed, the preview on its own. I don't think there was a need for the Miz TV segments, but whatever. Then backstage, Triple H talked to Brad Maddox, and he was asking Brad Maddox, you think, Daniel Bryan isn't big enough? You think he doesn't deserve it? You think that? Then he says, seems like somebody else is giving you, telling you what to say and making you make these decisions. And he says, he thinks that Daniel Bryan's the future. And he says there's two trains can hop on here. One is a future, and the other leads to a dead end. So it's Brad Maddox's choice which one to choose. Anyways, he leaves. And then Stephanie comes up to Brad Maddox, and he says, I know, it's a tough spot to be in, with, her husband and her father both giving him, I guess, different directions. And she says she's got an idea for him, but he just needs to be willing to hop on. So that was it. They then show a video package of Bray Wyatt and the Wyatt family of, showing their recent attacks on Main Event and on Raw on Kane. And then Fandango comes out for a matchup. His opponent ends up being Cody Rhodes with Damien Sandow on commentary. And in the end of the matchup, actually, by the way, I've got to point out that I really like Damien Sandow on commentary and his exchanges with Michael Cole. But anyways, as far as the match goes, in the end, you had Cody going for the disaster kick. And at that time, Damien Sandow had got on the apron to, I guess, try and distract Cody. Of course, when Cody goes for the disaster kick, he jumps from, the ropes. So he does that, and by doing that, he knocks down Damien Sandow from the apron, hits the disaster kick, on Fandango, then follows that up by the Crossroads and wins the matchup. Following that was CM Punk coming out to address the Brock Lesnar situation, and he cut a pretty good promo, very good promo, and then Paul Heyman appeared via satellite. CM Punk was asking him, are you actually via satellite or are you in the back? Because if you are in the back, I'm going to go get you and, drag you in the ring and give you what you deserve. Anyways, it was a very good also back and forth between Paul Heyman and CM Punk. Very good promo. The reason why I'm not going into detail is just because it was a long promo, so it takes some time here. But bottom line, they talked about pretty much, to sum it up, they made it official: Brock Lesnar versus CM Punk at SummerSlam. So far, they haven't announced if it's like a no-holds-barred match or not. They haven't said anything about that, so I'm not sure if it's going to be a regular one-on-one matchup or if it's going to be no-holds-barred. Maybe they'll announce that sometime down the line or something like that. And, CM Punk talked about how... CM Punk said, how about SummerSlam, the Beast versus the Best? And Paul Heyman, when he was on Satellite, he said, stop calling it the Beast versus the Best, because the Best is the Beast, Brock Lesnar. So yeah, very good segment there with CM Punk and Paul Heyman. After that, it was time for RVD versus Wade Barrett, and right off the bat in the matchup, after RVD's first kick on Barrett, Barrett got busted open, and he was bleeding from the mouth. Anyways, RVD pulls off his signature moves, the Rolling Thunder, the kick from the top turnbuckle. And in the end, hits a 5-star frog splash on Barrett for the 1-2-3 and wins the matchup. It was a pretty entertaining match for the time it got, and also they announced that on SmackDown, Del Rio will be facing off against Rob Van Dam. And then after that, it was time for Daniel Bryan's matches. And I guess it's like a gauntlet match. Yeah, it is pretty much a gauntlet match. Daniel Bryan came out, and his first opponent was Jack Swagger, accompanied by Antonio Cesaro and Zeb Coulter. Daniel Bryan, after Jack Swagger hit I believe it's called the Swagger Bomb. I freaking forget. Jack Swagger's body splash from the second rope. After Jack Swagger hit that, Daniel Bryan locked on the yes lock and got him to tap out. And then right away, Daniel Bryan's opponent afterwards was Antonio Cesaro. Let me tell you something, guys. They had a freaking incredible match. Awesome matchup. It was just really, really, really good. First match with Swagger was pretty short, but then the Antonio Cesaro versus Daniel Bryan match was pretty actually long. It was like a 10-minute or 15-minute matchup, and like I said, it was just incredible. You had at some point Antonio Cesaro hit Daniel Bryan with like freaking, I don't know, like 12 freaking uppercuts or something like that, and they pulled off some cool spots in the matchup. It was just an overall great match. And you had Daniel Bryan going for a back suplex from the very top turnbuckle, but Antonio Cesaro countered that into a crossbody. Also, you had Daniel Bryan hitting the suicide dive on the outside on both Antonio Cesaro and Jack Swagger. And in the end, the ending of that matchup was just as great as the matchup itself. You had Antonio Cesaro, you know how Antonio Cesaro lifts his opponent up, pushes him up in the air, and then hits the uppercut? Well, he tried to do that with Daniel Bryan. He pushed him up in the air, but Daniel Bryan, when he came back down, he somehow countered that, rolled Antonio Cesaro up for a roll-up for a pin, and got the victory. It was I keep saying this, but it was freaking that good of a matchup. After that, I was expecting Big Show because, they announced Big Show was going to be returning, but I mean, he didn't return. But it wasn't a Big Show, actually. It was Ryback. And, in their matchup, actually, Daniel Bryan got some good offense in this matchup, too. They both, got some moves in. And Daniel Bryan, at some point, you had Ryback in the corner. Daniel Bryan hitting like 3 missile drop kicks. Or not missile drop kicks, but running drop kicks. There were actually 2, and I think the third one, on that third one, Daniel Bryan did not connect because Ryback stopped him with a clothesline. Ryback did not hit Shell Shock. Daniel Bryan did, though, lock on the yes lock, but I believe Ryback got to the ropes. And then on the outside, Ryback took out a table. He set that up on the outside. After he set it up, Daniel Bryan hit a suicide dive on Ryback, who hit the announcer's table. And then they got back in the ring. Ryback got back outside. And at this point, Daniel Bryan goes for his running knee off the apron onto Ryback, but Ryback catches him. But it seemed Daniel Bryan ran really quickly at Ryback, so with a lot of momentum. And when Ryback caught him for that powerbomb, it was kind of like he couldn't turn Bryan around to the powerbomb onto the table and powerbomb onto the table. So it seemed like he just had to drop him, hit that powerbomb because of the momentum, how fast Daniel Bryan ran at him. So he hit the powerbomb on the floor. And then after that, he set him up for another powerbomb, this time through the table, which caused a disqualification. So Daniel Bryan won the matchup by DQ. After the match, John Cena came out running, and he pretty much chased off Ryback, and he challenged him to, he told him, how can you powerbombed this guy through a table after a 30-minute matchup. And, you know, he challenges Ryback to a tables match. Ryback says if that's what you want, that's what you get. And so I guess that matchup is for next week because John Cena's music hit and Ryback just, you know, left. And then backstage, you saw Brad Maddox, who was watching the matchup, and Vince McMahon. And, Brad Maddox says to Vince McMahon he's going to make that match official for next week. And Vince McMahon tells him, what about Daniel Bryan? Are you going to deprive Daniel Bryan of a match to prove himself? How about Daniel Bryan versus somebody bigger than him? How about Daniel Bryan versus a friend? So then Brad Maddox says, oh, well, how about Daniel Bryan versus Kane next week? And that was it. Daniel Bryan then goes back, gets up, goes back in the ring. His music hits, and he starts, you know, chanting, yes, yes, yes. So, what did I think about the overall show, a review? Well, I've got to say, favorite match, highlights freaking everything in the Antonio Cesaro versus Daniel Bryan match, especially that ending, and the part where Antonio Cesaro hit like freaking, might have been more, 10 or more freaking uppercuts on Daniel Bryan, and just, you know, the Daniel Bryan Gauntlet match, you know, versus Swagger, Antonio Cesaro, Ryback took like, I don't know, 40 minutes, 45 minutes or something like that. It was a long matchup, or multiple matches in a row. Also, CM Punk's promo exchange with Paul Heyman was pretty good. Also, I enjoyed the Raw Van Dam match. Del Rio versus Sheamus was a good match too. It also seemed like they postponed the Big Show return. Maybe that's going to be next week. And the Wyatt family did not appear on tonight's show. Maybe next week as well, with Kane, you know, coming back in action, especially against Daniel Bryan. And yeah, as far as, you know, my rating for this show, I'd give it an 8 out of 10. You know, I thought it was a pretty good show. So, that is pretty much it for the review. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, as always, you can click that like button down below. I'd really appreciate it. You can expect some videos from me tomorrow or Wednesday. And I think that's all I've got to say, really. So, in the comment section, actually, give me your rating for Raw. You know, I've been giving you guys my rating pretty much every single week, or almost. I'd like to see what you guys thought about, you know, tonight's Raw. So, I'm out, guys. See ya.